Mark, it's late, 10 p.m. in Washington, D.C.
Very late.
We're like a couple of nighttime DJs, solving crime by day, covering Trump by night. And, well, he's been on the telly.
He has.
Address to the nation.
Yeah, not from the Oval Office, though. From the East Room, I think. We'll tell you what that was all about. But did you spot in the Oval Office the other day on the TV screens, the cameras picked up something unusual?
Tell me.
Superglue.
Superglue.
On the Resolute desk.
Did I ask for what?
Well, no one quite knows. This is what the late night sleuths, you and I.
Well,
no one quite knows, but apparently the rumour is that he's been using it, or someone's been using it, to stick up more gold things around the Oval Office.
Well, that's a relief, because I know we're going to be doing a story about explosive diarrhea.
We are.
I did wonder if the two could in any way be connected.
Absolutely not. I'm Mark Stone.
And I'm James Matthews in the Trump 100 studio.
Yeah, and I'm right next to you. It's very late here. We're recording this. What is it? You said what time it was. I've got no idea, because I've been up since 7 o'clock at the White House. I was.
A couple of minutes past 10 now.
Well, there you go. It feels like a very long day for me. I was at the White House very early. I was there because there was lots going on there. And you started your day a bit later because of this address.
Yeah, I'm doing a back shift today. At 9 p.m, Donald Trump was on the telly. We've just heard from him in this rare presidential address, although these things aren't so rare with Donald Trump, I suppose. He spoke about his record, but ultimately it was about election fraud.
And we will get into all of that. And we've got a bucket of news as well, because genuinely there has been so much mad stuff happening in Trump world over the last few days. I said to our producer, Gabriel, I said, we've got to somehow mention all of it, because it's completely mad, some of the stuff that's been going on. So we're going to talk about Pete Hegseth.
Go on.
So we're going to talk about Pete Hegseth, who wants to test America's soldiers' testosterone levels, presumably because he doesn't think they are hard enough. Then, of course, there is, have you heard about the autocue operator?
Go on.
This is absolutely brilliant. Trump's autocue operator, it turns out, had been betting on what might be in Trump's speeches, because, of course, he knew. We will get into all of that.
Yeah, and in other bucket news, there is this issue with explosive diarrhea in the United States. We will also be looking once more at the reflecting pool, which has been drained again.
Absolutely. Much of the news is quite bewildering, I have to say. But in much more serious news, I did speak to Trump's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. She's back from maternity leave. And I asked her about our investigation into the Iran school bombing. You'll remember that one. 120 children killed on day one of the war. I'll tell you what she said, and we'll discuss it. Right, James, let's start where we've just ended. The speech that President Trump gave. These addresses to the nation, I mean, I feel like I've talked about a few of them on the podcast. I think he's given 3 or 4 in his presidency. They're a big moment, aren't they, normally? It's that my fellow Americans moment when you ask the networks to carry your speech and you've got something important to say. This wasn't about foreign policy, though, was it? It wasn't about the war that is still ongoing in Iran. It wasn't about cost of living. No, this was about something that's on his mind and has been for a while.
Correct, yeah. Election fraud, that would be the headline, and proof of election fraud as he would have it. As things stand, I'm not sure that's where we are. The White House has released this tranche of documents, many of them substantially redacted. But essentially, what Donald Trump is saying is that these present new evidence of election interference by a number of people, countries, agencies, the Chinese in particular. He talks about the Chinese in the 2020 election cycle, the 2020 election that he lost, remember, speaks about a compromise of election data, acquiring the voter files of tens of millions of people, sensitive data, he said, that's needed to register to vote. And he spoke about engaging in nefarious activities. So putting China in the frame as a country that had targeted America's election, spoke about the deep state, as he called it, intelligence agencies whose work it was to alert the United States to the extent of China's election meddling, as he put it. He spoke about this intelligence agency, downplaying it, covering it up from a president and his people. He spoke about spy agencies learning in 2020 about voter rolls in 18 states. He said bought, stolen, or hacked. Said the CIA in mid-2018 rumbled this Communist Party plan to make the president resign or to prevent his election, the President Trump at the time. And other allegations like that, Mark, actually which, yes, point towards the likes of China trying to influence the US election. But as we sit here tonight, and it was only an hour ago that he was at the podium on the TV, there is no clear evidence or fresh evidence of election fraud, of election interference, as opposed to efforts to influence an election, to influence the minds of American voters, which, of course, adversaries, that's a game they play all the time.
Yeah, there will be listeners and viewers thinking, I've heard all this before, haven't I? I think what Trump is trying to do with this is present what he sees as a danger in the future, in his eyes. So he has split. Incidentally, the speech I was struck at how much he stuck to script. He didn't veer off the autocue. Presumably there's a new autocue operator now, because the last one got fired for the reasons we mentioned a moment ago. So he stuck to script. He asked people to go and look at the White House website as he revealed these 4 buckets, essentially. The first one, vulnerabilities in electronic voting and ballot counting systems. We've heard all that before. They are apparently not very secure. That's partly true. We'll go into that in a minute. He then talked about China's acquisition and exploitation of American voters' data. Well, that's no surprise. We absolutely know that the Chinese and the Russians, by the way, and probably a lot of other nefarious players as well, are also trying to influence America's democracy. Of course they are. Why wouldn't they? They want to undermine American democracy. So that's no surprise either. Then there's a specific thing about Michigan voters, voter registration investigation there. And then finally this non-citizens on state voter rolls. They've come up with some evidence, they claim, although we will drill down on it and see the extent to which it's accurate, that there are a huge number of non-citizens on voter rolls. But of course, that doesn't mean that the non-citizens actually voted. So as you say, James, he is presenting a whole load of allegations, but there doesn't appear at this stage to be very much evidence to back it up. Take, for example, the China stuff, that China has apparently been trying to influence the American election. Well, yes, they would like to, of course. But if you go back to 2021, the Director of National Intelligence at the time said, we assessed that China did not deploy interference efforts and considered but did not deploy interference efforts intended to change the outcome of the US presidential election. We have high confidence in this judgment. So said the Director of National Intelligence in 2021. Now Trump's claiming apparently that wasn't true.
Yeah, it's a point to make that Trump has consistently made this allegation about election fraud, has cast aspersions on mail-in ballots and so on, and essentially the process that led to his defeat in that 2020 election against Joe Biden. All the agencies charged with investigating those allegations have found nothing substantial, certainly nothing that would have materially affected the election result. There have been more than 60 legal challenges by Trump and his supporters, all of them knocked back by the courts. And the thing, Mark, about intelligence, he cites intelligence reports and assessments of what the Chinese and others are up to. Intelligence is exactly that. It is the view of an intelligence agency. It's not proof of anything. It's the start of a process. And I think the danger for actually democracy ultimately in this country is that the likes of this speech tonight, if it's not without serious foundation, and again, we've yet to interrogate the full detail of the documents, but if it is Trump flying a kite, then that's doing exactly what the Chinese, the Iranians and the Russians want to do.
Exactly.
To undermine US democracy.
Yeah, he's doing America's enemies work for them because he's telling Americans, don't trust your own democracy. That's what America's enemies are trying to do as well. So he is literally doing the work of America's enemies by raising these fears, raising these doubts. Now, why is he doing this? Well, some say it is because when we get close to the midterm elections in November, he would like to be able to declare a state of national emergency. He can basically say, look, our election system is not secure. We cannot guarantee that the election will be fair. Therefore, we're going to have this election under a state of emergency. ICE agents, authorities outside, armed law enforcement outside voting stations. That is the fear. That is the way he wants to run the midterm elections coming up. Why would he want to do that? Well, maybe because he's worried he might lose.
Yeah, well, the Republican Party is in trouble under his watch. And, short of the state of emergency, and that is a legitimate fear of many in this country, Mark, as you point out, short of that is this business of the SAVE Act, this piece of legislation that he's trying to get through Congress, which he cited. In fact, that was the big roundup. That was his big finish in this address, telling people, get this act through Congress. If you don't, then the only reason that you don't want it to happen is because you want to cheat in elections. The thing about this SAVE Act, of course, is it would require citizens to present passports, driver's licenses and so on, to vouch for their ID before they vote. Now, many people support that and say, why wouldn't you do that to establish citizenship and so on? But half this country doesn't have a passport. There are relatively few people who have the likes of a driver's license, particularly in the sort of constituencies where Trump doesn't have support, African-American communities and so on. So critics of this SAVE Act, which is struggling to get through Congress, the Senate don't like it. Those critics, they say this is to undermine the vote in areas where they will vote against Trump.
That said, and you make some good arguments there. Clearly, there are big concerns about the SAVE Act, but it is also the case that there are problems with America's elections, the electoral system. 8,000 different jurisdictions across the country. There are inconsistencies between them. They are underfunded. One argument would be, if you've got a problem with this, Mr. President, just put a lot more federal money into these systems to make them work. Anecdotally, I've got a pal, an American pal, who went to vote here in D.C. For the mayoral elections not that long ago, a few weeks ago. And she said, she's a Democrat. She's no fan of Trump. She said, he's got a point here. I didn't have to hand over any ID. I could have voted 3 or 4 times for the mayor I wanted. It's a shambles. So that there is an issue. There is a discussion to be had, clearly. But much of what President Trump appears to have tried to tell the American people on prime time, he was hoping all the networks were covering it, seems to be without any basis in fact at all.
Yeah, and to that point, last Thursday, Trump removed the 3 remaining members of something called the Election Assistance Commission, set up to safeguard election integrity. So it's a 4-seat commission now without any members.
There we go. James, we want to move on to Pete Hegseth's testosterone and diarrhea. But before we do, I just want to get your thoughts on the fact the networks didn't carry, or some of them didn't broadcast this Address to the Nation live.
Well, it was interesting, and I can see why they didn't, actually. As you pointed out, a president's address to the nation, that used to be a family around the telly occasion.
Yeah.
A leader
and it
speaking
would have been,
to his people.
And to be fair, it would have been for some. Clearly, they will want, and that's part of the problem. Some of the networks carried it, and the people who watch those networks will probably get analysis which backs up their view that maybe Trump's right, that maybe there is a problem and there is massive fraud going on, and then that some of the networks didn't carry it.
Yeah.
You can see where the problems come.
You're right. Yeah, that business of, do you put a president on TV if he is going to speak mistruths? Or do you need to actually, just to take stock, let him speak, fact check it before you present it to your audience? Because there's a responsibility of a broadcaster, to do that. And I also think he is the president who has cried wolf once too often. We've had these State of the Nation addresses. He likes it. He sees the value because it typically is nailed on, prime time, peak viewing. That's where the audience is, and that's what he has been chasing. But too often in the past, these things have been trailed, and they have turned out to be what they call here a nothing burger.
I think the risk of not covering it and the sort of conspiracy that would come out of that is greater than covering it and then interrogating it hard afterwards, as you did earlier on.
I'm not with you on that.
No?
I think, there are two different audiences anyway in this country.
There are.
Given that politics is a blood sport here, hard division in the middle. I think if you're with Trump, you'd be watching it on Fox News. If you're not convinced by Trump, you would be waiting for what you regard as independent, authoritative analysis and nothing hidden. And I think in a world where we can get every frame of everything anyway, I don't see too much of a danger in saying, look, this is what we take from it. This is how we digest it. This is how we fact check it. Go and check every frame of it somewhere. You'll find it. I don't see any great danger for the broadcasters.
I think have the courage to play it and then interrogate it hard afterwards and knock down every single point.
Right, Mark, you get docked a point if you introduce any puns into the following news item. It's the explosive diarrhea. A story
It's
which
not
will
funny,
which will
actually.
give a good run.
Yeah.
I'm one down already. Caroline Levitt, she was back at the podium today following her maternity leave and, well, what does she have to talk about but diarrhea? It's called cyclosporiasis, explosive diarrhea to give it its street name, down to a parasite apparently, which is giving people this particular difficulty. And, well, let's hear from Caroline Levitt. This is the White House news conference.
What I can tell you, having been back at the White House for just a couple of short weeks, I've been in meetings on this very topic, and I can tell you the White House is closely monitoring the situation, has a handle on the situation. We're committed to providing the CDC and the FDA the resources that they need, and we urge all Americans to follow CDC guidance on properly washing and cooking raw ingredients to prevent this foodborne illness. As you know, there has been an unusually high number of cases. There are typically thousands of cases of this outbreak every year, but there has been an unusually higher number, and that's why we're working with the FDA and other partners at the federal, state, and local level to increase detection methods, provide the guidance, and then also, most importantly, trace the outbreak back to its original source, which we are currently in the process of doing.
Caroline, the lack of permanent leadership at the CDC and FDA and any funding cuts, has that slowed the response to figure out where this outbreak has started?
No, we've talked to the CDC and FDA specifically about that, and not at all. They have the resources they need to make sure that Americans are fully informed and protected from this illness during this time.
Yeah, we're laughing about it now, but it's serious, and there are a huge number of cases. It's growing all the time, and you and I might not be laughing this time next week if we've eaten some suspect.
One of us might be flying solo.
If we've eaten some suspect lettuce.
That's not a pun, that's a fear.
Anyway, what on earth is this thing? It's a foodborne illness thought to be contracted from people eating raw vegetables like lettuce and green salads. It does cause fatigue and fever.
As well as
I don't know why we're finding this so funny. We're not going to be laughing next week, James, when we're both off with diarrhea.
Especially not you, you're on holiday.
Oh, God, don't.
But hang on, this goes on, 2,000 cases a year apparently, normally, but now there are more than 7,000 cases across 34 states. That's just in the past couple of weeks. The state of Michigan seems to be the epicenter.
Now, I hear you all ask, why are you telling us this? This is a podcast about Donald Trump. Well, guess what? He's got something to do with it. He's to blame, apparently, so say some. Not quite him, but Elon Musk and Doge. Remember that department, the department for, what was it? The department, what was it called? The
Department of
Government Efficiency,
Yeah,
that's
the
right.
one.
Now disbanded, but it was still operating, took a sword to several federal departments. They cut the number of people employed to look at parasitic outbreaks at the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, from 11 people down to 3. And guess what? Those 11 people would have been involved in looking to how to mitigate and deal with this bout of diarrhea.
Yeah, this pesky parasite. It used to be on the mandatory reporting list at the CDC. They were keeping an eye on it. But again, Musk and Doge, they decided the list was too long. They cut the number of pathogens required to be monitored from 8 to just 2. The parasite causing thousands of Americans this extreme case of the runs was one of the 6 that Doge thought, unworthy of mandatory reporting.
There you go. All Elon Musk's fault.
As ever.
Now, testosterone.
From
How are you feeling,
what
James?
else?
Tough, hard,
Full
solid.
Of it. Yeah, full of it. But let's, come on. Don't know why you're looking at me with the bedroom eyes. Come on, it's late. What about testosterone, Mark?
Good God. Well, Pete Hegseth, he's wanting tests now. Those members of the military that are over, how old? I think it's 30 or something. He wants to do tests to see that their testosterone levels, why can't I say that word, are high enough.
At the Department of War, we have the most elite warriors on the face of the earth. Every single day, you are pushed to your absolute physical and mental limits to master the profession of arms. We demand your all, and you give it. But while we invest heavily in our weapon systems, platforms, and gear, our most decisive tactical advantage will always be the individual warfighter. We have a sacred duty to maintain that advantage, which is why we must constantly look for new ways to optimize your performance, your resilience, and your long-term health. And to meet that commitment today, I'm authorizing a new screening program for testosterone deficiency for our service members, ensuring you have the right testosterone levels to operate at your absolute best.
Yeah, so the big new T plan for American soldiers, the High T War Department. This is a man, Hegseth, for whom life seems to be viewed through the lens of a 1980s action movie, announcing annual testosterone testing for troops over 30, for goodness sake.
It is absolutely mad, isn't it? And there's been a lot of criticism for him online, actually. I've been, other military officials, retired generals, all the rest of it, just sort of shaking their heads. What on earth is he up to? He wants to keep the military, apparently, on the leading edge of lethality. It's an absurd moment amidst a litany of absurd moments with this Department of War, it has to be said. How's it going to work? Well, soldiers will be tested annually, we're told. If their testosterone levels are lower than optimum, the medical military team will offer testosterone replacement therapy for these soldiers.
Yeah, apparently going on deployments can lower one's testosterone level. Deployments with poor sleep, high stress environments, poor nutrition can take a toll. I would say, Mark, because I've Googled it, that there is a risk that comes with too much testosterone. It can cause male pattern baldness, I can get behind that, but aggression, mood swings, and irritability. Now,
not diarrhea.
Well, stick around. But, on a serious point, you're talking about people in the military who have to make rational, split-second life and death decisions, many of them. And you're talking about a military, many of them who operate in rooms in front of computer screens. They're not charging at the enemy with bayonets anymore. It shouldn't necessarily be all about the G.I. Joe prototype.
Now, what about female members of the military, I hear you ask? Well, the Defense Department, asked by our partner network NBC, declined to say whether there would be estrogen screenings for female service members and if there would be repercussions for service members who declined the recommendation testosterone treatment.
Now, Mark, shall we talk about the reflecting pool? Your reflecting pool?
I like doing updates every now and again because I just think it is so reflective of the presidency. It's been drained. He promised it would be. So he drained it the first time, then he laid that swimming pool liner or whatever it was that his friend in a no-bid contract completed, then painted it blue, then filled it up again, and then it all began to fall apart. And so he accused a whole load of people of vandalism. Some of them have been in court. I don't imagine those court cases will necessarily stand up to scrutiny. But now he's drained it again, and he's trying to fix it. I mean, it is a genuine shambles.
And what about the gash, the 250-foot gash?
Yeah, which he said at times was 350 foot. No sign at all.
All right.
It's not there. Lo and behold, shock horror.
I've got to ask you, do you regret liking this pool? I remember that podcast we did a few weeks ago.
Yeah, no.
You said, I like it. Oh, good idea.
No, what I said was it looked good. And it did for one day. It looked genuinely blue. And then the algae, or is it algae, came back.
Yeah,
so it looked good for a day.
I'll take your word for it. Mark, I was at the United Nations a couple of months ago, being given a tour, which is great. I would recommend it. And I was being told a story as we went up the escalator. I don't know, do you remember the escalator that Donald Trump and Melania were on, which
The
stuck
one that
halfway?
stopped. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was a big stooshy at the time. He wasn't happy.
Yeah.
Nobody quite knew what had gone wrong.
Someone had
Who
flicked the switch. hadn't they?
Well, yeah, well, who knows? But I'm told they didn't know. They just didn't know what had gone wrong. That wasn't the only problem that day, of course, because inside the big auditorium where he was addressing the General Assembly, of course, there, normally they have their in-house operators who operate the autocue. Not that day, because Trump travels with his own guy. And wouldn't you know it, his own guy is in trouble.
Yeah, this is a great story. I have to say, I've often wondered who the autocue operator is and have felt quite sorry for that person because of Trump's weaves. He goes all over the place. So trying to keep up with his speeches must be very hard. I no longer feel sorry for that person, given that we now know what they have been up to. Betting on what might be in Trump's speeches, making a lot of money on doing so because he knew precisely what was going to be in those speeches. So he's placed bets worth $100,000 using this insider knowledge that he had from the speeches.
Yeah, that day, actually, at the UN, there was a problem with the autocue because it jammed.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you remember. And
I was
Trump,
there.
Trump wasn't
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
And in
But
fact,
that was his guy. That was this guy.
Exactly, yeah. And his quote, Trump said on the podium, he said, I don't know what's happened here, but someone's going to be in big trouble. I can only assume, Mark, the guy had a couple of quid on big trouble. Before we go, you might remember in the first days of the US-Israeli war with Iran, a school in the south of Iran was bombed.
Yeah, it's a story that we at Sky News have been covering a lot. Dominic Waghorn, a friend of the podcast, been on it a few times. He has been to Menab. You may have seen some of the reporting he did a few weeks ago from that southern Iranian town. Well, there's a load more in a film that came out this past week. So go and find that on all Sky News platforms.
Yeah, this Saturday, exclusively for Sky News insiders, Mark and Dom will take you behind the scenes of that new documentary.
Yeah, and we go into a lot of detail about what might have happened in Menab and who was responsible. We've spoken to whistleblowers. I've spoken to a senior military source who has seen the military's internal investigation, which the US government will not publish. And I've spoken to President Trump a couple of weeks ago. He says, wasn't us. We didn't do this. So I put some of that to Caroline Levitt at the press briefing today.
Thank you very much, Mark Stone from Sky News. Can I switch to Iran, please?
Sure.
And specifically, the Menab school attack. 120 children dead, 26 of their teachers. A Sky News investigation released today points to all this being a tragic mistake by America, by the US military. So could you explain, please, why the president is repeatedly saying it wasn't America, when he hasn't actually, he says also that he hasn't even seen the report?
I can't speak to the Sky News investigation respectfully because I have not read it. All I can speak to is what the president has said as I speak on his behalf, and the investigation continues, and we would defer you to the Department of War for further questions on it.
Do you mind me following up, if I may?
Sure.
I just want to
My answer is
understand.
not going to change.
I just want to understand why he consistently says it wasn't us, we didn't do this, when all the evidence and indeed the preliminary report, and we've spoken to a military insider who says this was human error.
Well, that's the president's opinion, and at the very same time, he has said the Department of War is investigating the matter, and we would defer you to them for any questions with respect to the investigation, which obviously has not been released yet. I would defer you to them for further questions on it. But there's been, I think the president feels that way because he knows that our military always acts in good faith and absolutely never targets civilians or children, unlike the other side of this conflict, Iran, who is well known for killing women and children and innocent people in their country for a very long time. So you should focus on that in your reporting.
And as James mentioned, Dom and I will go into a lot more detail about that, about his journey to Iran, how to get into Iran, how we managed to speak to so many different people to get our sense of what happened in Manab, because the American government won't tell us. That will all be on Sky News Insider, so make sure you subscribe.
So, Mark, it's been a heavy week, and that's before we get to the football.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, I was at the White House all morning, and every single person I bumped into who I knew said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry."
We had dinner earlier on. Helen Ann Smith, she was over from China.
Yep.
And
Also a friend of the podcast.
She is, yeah. And you ordered in the name of Jude Bellingham.
I thought that'd be quite funny.
So when they presented this ramen, it was Jude Bellingham? Is there a Jude Bellingham in the house?
Well, it's because my kids do that. My Jack, my middle son, he would often, in the past, has said, would order food, and then when they said, "What's your name?" Messi. He was Messi's biggest fan, not so much now.
Yeah, I tried that name thing once in a ramen place in Georgetown with William Wallace. And the guy, I don't know where he was Hispanic, he couldn't pronounce it. I just go, "Hey, excuse me, sir." I should have said freedom. But I tell you, for the England game, for the first time in my life, and I'm 61, I was in an England crowd watching an England game.
Yeah.
And I see in football, and all this talk about, will you support England? I don't think people should be asked that anyway. You don't ask a Man United fan, do they want Liverpool to win the Premiership? You're our neighbours after all. But anyway, I have to say, in this England crowd, an opposing support can be pretty ugly from a distance. Mm-hmm. But I was struck by how doom-laden, how pessimistic, and generally how humble they were. And actually, that was quite endearing. A support that needed a cuddle. So I could get behind the English. And, when I look at, your kids, I saw the pictures of them watching the football. Michael's kid's the cameraman. Eleanor, our producer here, who, we were covering the Tartan Army. She's from Cheltenham. Big England fan. Yeah. Cuts her and she bleeds Vindaloo. But, she was belting out Flower of Scotland. And, in that kind of company, I can't look at them and say, I hope you're going to be unhappy at the end of 90 minutes. So I was with you.
I'm pretty sure the producers have stopped recording. We're just talking to each other now. Anyway, if you are still there, if they are still recording and you are still listening, thanks for listening. Get in touch with any of your questions, the usual place, trump100@sky.uk, and we will be back. Well, I'll be back, not with this gag master, but with
careful.
Dominic Waghorn. But you'll only get it if you subscribe to The Insider. If you don't, you're never going to hear it. So subscribe. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much for listening. All the best.